Very well. Yeah, if you didn't know, this panel is in English because we have some English-speaking guests here. I introduce Rob Daviau. We start with you. One of the designers of Pandemic Legacy Season 1, Season 2, and I hope so Season 3 as well. And Matt Leacock, other well-known designer. And on the left we have Stephen Kimball, the head of studio from Spielen Games, and Sebastian Rapp, head of localization, you said localization and translation from Asmodee and Spielen Games as well. So, first of all, we start in the very beginning. With what was the first initial idea to make a game like Risiko Legacy? What was the? How did you wake up and say, yeah, I will make a story game and rip some cards?
Yeah, the ripping cards. Everyone talks about it. Probably if I did it again, I wouldn't have ripping cards. Well, I've always been a storyteller. I've been a role-playing gamer my whole life, and I actually planned on getting into role-playing games more than board games. And then, long story, but got a job at Hasbro making board games, and so I did that for about 9 or 10 years. And then I got the idea for what became Risiko Legacy. We were in a meeting talking about Clue, or Cluedo. Everyone? Mm-hmm, yeah. Where is it in Germany?
Cluedo.
Cluedo? That's even cooler. And I made the joke. I said, I don't know why they keep inviting these people to dinner, because they murder someone every time. Just being a smartass. And then that led to a little bit of an idea about an hour later, where we were discussing, as a brainstorm, assumptions that you make in a game. Right? When you're designing a new game and you say, like, the game has to have a winner. The game has to have pieces. Each player only controls their own piece, right? You just write these assumptions about either any game or the game you're talking about, and it sometimes leads to interesting ways to change it, because you can then turn it on and say, well, what if you didn't just control your own piece, right? If you think about Hanabi, what if you didn't see your cards, but everyone else did? So this very simple idea. And I think based on my joke I had made, I said, what if the game didn't fully reset every time? What if you kind of picked up like a chapter in a book, but it mostly reset? And I remember my boss, who's a big game designer, he did Hero Quest, if you know that, back in
know that.
Yeah, and Battle Masters, and he had done a lot of, I remember he was writing and he just went, and gave me a point, and I tried to turn it into a Clue game called Clue: The Usual Suspects, where your characters could get a scar, or you would get a nemesis, or you would defeat a bad guy. And I pitched it to Hasbro, and I've never seen more confused people in my life. So it went away, and then about 6 months later, brought it back for Risk, and somehow, and that's a whole story in itself, managed to get it through the whole Hasbro system without it dying, and it died like 5 times, and I would just refuse to let it die.
Reviving it.
Yeah. And it came out right when the company was moving, and I was thinking I couldn't move with the company, and I didn't. I had to get a new job, and I thought, it's my last game I'll do in this profession. Why not do something crazy, and everyone will think, like, he just did something weird and just was gone. And I was really surprised that the opposite happened.
The opposite happens, yeah, because you created a new genre, a new game genre.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't happen so many times, and now we have a legacy boom. So, next question is, did you play Risiko Legacy, or how? Or did you It's you're a big Pandemic fan, or how does this crossover start? Who grabbed the phone and calls the other guy and said, "Hey, this is it"?
Right. So I played Risiko Legacy with my group and really loved it. I wasn't a big Risk fan, but really liked Risiko Legacy. It made me enjoy Risk for the first time.
Yeah.
When I play again and again. And so I played that, and then I kind of moved on. But I was working with Z-Man Games on what could we do with Pandemic. So we just go through all the lists of things you can do. Well, we could do Pandemic the card game. We could do Pandemic the dice game. I remember saying, well, we could do Pandemic the legacy game, and then I just kind of laughed and chuckled. I didn't think we would do Pandemic the legacy game. because it seemed too big a project, too crazy. And then we just kind of shelved the idea for, I don't know, maybe a year or two. And then one day I started kind of sketching out some ideas for what a Pandemic Legacy game might be, and was totally enthralled with it. There's so many possibilities. So after about maybe an hour of sketching, I figured I got to get a hold of Rob Daviau and talk with the publisher there to try to do that. You have a different memory of how this worked, because was it like Twitter, or how do we finally got in touch somehow?
So I was at Gen Con
2013.
I'll also be there like next week.
So anyway, it was like 5 years ago.
5 years ago, and the publisher said, "Oh, Matt Leacock's looking for you. He wants to get in touch. Which wants to get in touch with you." And my immediate thought was Pandemic Legacy, and then I'm like, okay, I'll get in touch with him, when I have time. No, Pandemic was and continues to be a very big game, and I had just left Hasbro the year before and was desperately trying to find projects and follow up on the little bit of buzz that had come out of Risk Legacy. So then I immediately forgot. And went home, and about a month later, I was walking through my game room and saw Pandemic and went, oh, I should email that guy. Didn't have his email. So I tweeted at you, and then you tweeted, and we eventually got an email, and then you sent me an email.
The email was pretty short. It's like, hey, what do you think? You want to work on a Pandemic Legacy game? And I think Rob wrote back, yes.
In all caps, 72-point font.
It was big, yeah. And then we've been working together ever since, over the last 5 years.
It's great. And Stephen.
Yes.
When they pitched their idea, it was from the first minute, yes, this is great, because you knew already Risk Legacy, or you a little bit? It's
I was not familiar
thing.
with Risk Legacy.
Again, the ripped cards.
Yeah. So at the time, actually, Z-Man was still with F2Z, and so they were working closely with Sophie Gravel and her team in Montreal. So my role came in more in season 2. And my team worked a lot. We got about half of it finished from Sophie's team, and we did the rest of season 2. So all of the initial season 1 stuff, that was before my time. It was these guys.
And one question to translation to have. Is it different to translate a legacy game in comparison with a normal game with huge text, or what's the problems comes up?
It's very, very different. I think working on the Pandemic Legacy games was the most complex and complicated things I ever worked on, because if you have a normal game, you have the rules, you have the cards, you read the rules, you understand what it is about. There's no story to follow. So if you're doing a legacy game, first you have to learn what a story is, and you don't get a walkthrough or thing like that. So you have to figure it out from about 25 to 30 files. So you have card pack 1, card pack 2, card pack 3, card pack 4, and you have to say, okay, this is January, this is happening, now this can happen, this can happen. So you spend a lot of time before you actually start translating to figure out what the story is about. So this is really complex, yeah.
Okay,
but it's fun as well.
Yeah. And in the development process of the Legacy 1 or Legacy 2, I think it's completely different to playtesting. You need tons of hours to playtest this stuff. How can you handle it? You have hundreds of people who can.
It's really it's challenging playtesting
prototypes,
because you don't know what the game is to begin with, so you need to find the base game, the first game. With the season 1, it was easier because we had Pandemic. We wanted to start where our audience was. They knew how to play Pandemic, and then we could gradually change it. But you can't go too far in the design because you don't know what's going to happen. So we took a strategy where we would design the first game, the first 2, maybe the first 3 games, test that, learn, and then we'd maybe add another month on, and then test 4 months, and then get the results back, and then continue like that. But often we didn't really know where we were going until we were maybe halfway through. And then you figure out the whole arc, the whole year, and you have to redo everything so that it makes sense with that given end in mind. So it's very time consuming. Everything to the fact that it just takes a lot of time.
It is, yeah. Matt showed me how he likes to test games, which actually works very well with a legacy game, which is not a lot of groups, because legacy games are more about making sure that people understand the story, and you're constantly introducing new rules, and you want to make sure that they read it and go, I get it, and just keep playing, and that they don't play it wrong, or it doesn't take 15 minutes of arguments. So a lot of it is about the experience around opening new things and learning new rules, and then the game itself. And so what he showed me is we have at any time 2 or 3 groups total playing that version, and they record it just on their phone or their iPad, and then we get the video and we just watch the video. But we tell people, do it from the moment you open the box till you put it away. We want to see every discussion, every point, and so we can watch, okay, they read the card, everyone missed this hint, got to make it more obvious. And then the next version, got to make it more obvious. I've never actually, we've never actually made it too obvious. It always is like more obvious, more obvious. It's a cartoon.
But you need a new group.
And then you get a new group every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we find a group that has only played Pandemic Legacy 1, but hasn't played a lot of games. And other times we find people who have played Pandemic at the tournament level who will break the math. So sometimes we want to know, and then we play 2 players, and we play 4 players, and we say, we find a group where, well, the 2 of us play Pandemic and Pandemic Legacy, but we have 2 people who've never played. And so we're always looking for different groups. And sometimes there's one group, we'll have them play it very early and get their feedback, and then we'll have them play it near the end. They're just a good group, and they don't mind playing twice.
And videotaping is really wonderful because you can see the emotions that you see when people are opening things up. Or they read a story and they hit a story beat, and you see them go, oh. You know, you're like, oh, that was supposed to be exciting. We have to change that because that's not good. So we definitely changed bits of the story based on reactions that we saw from the players.
He had a question over here.
Yeah.
So when it comes to pick a group, actually, do you do something for diversity? Because you can easily end up with just a bunch of males between 25 and 35, all coming from Toronto. And then, so do you pick like kids, or do you pick like, you know, people in different ages or something like
Your
that?
point about diversity is the best point there is. I mean, really, you want to get a diverse. I mean, we're looking for people that meet our target, but we also want to go wider because you learn more when you're finding. You know, if you just narrowly target the people you think are going to love the game, you're not going to learn nearly as much. It's much more painful to do it that way because you watch it and you're yelling at the screen, and you just want them to do the right thing, but they can't hear you. So you develop all sorts of empathy for the players, and then when you're doing the next revision, you've got all sorts of energy going into that to make it better.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm thinking of our different groups, and we do have like a father and son group where the son was playing season 2 at age 13 with his dad. We've had families, at least it's close to 50-50 male-female when we play.
Couples,
2 sets of couples.
Divorced people.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like we try, I mean, we don't do like 4 people in their 80s, for example, right? Because they're probably not going to play the game in our audience, but we try to find people of different, like broad in terms of diversity and also in terms of skill level, and hit all of those different ones.
yeah, and people we don't know and people we do know.
So one step back, finally you twittered each other, and yeah, okay, we make Pandemic Legacy. Now the next thing, it was the story, or you first discuss about, okay, this is the pandemic mechanics, and I would like to take this risk legacy mechanics. What was first, the story you discussed, or?
Do you remember?
I remember, I do. First of all, I said, look, I just did Risk. I don't think this legacy thing is going to work as a co-op, right? Let me tell you why. I now think it works better as a co-op, the legacy system. Matt had the like first couple months story worked out, which is largely in season 1, the story that happens. He had sort of said that, and then he said, and then maybe this, and then it just kind of like, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we knew we were starting with Pandemic, and we had a number of expansions that had come out, so I could say, look, I don't really know all these expansions, so we could kind of take different pieces from other games, but the first thing we needed to figure out was, how we didn't let the game just beat up the players. In a competitive game, in a legacy game, if one person keeps winning, the idea would be that the other players would try to bring them back down. But if you keep losing, the game's not going to do anything different. And so that's what we had to figure out first. We had to figure out, like, well, do you try a game again and again until you solve it? That doesn't tell a story. Or do you just move on? Well, what if you got a bad shuffle and it wasn't your fault? And that's how we ended up doing, like, the months, and you get to try a second time. The halves, and you get to try a second time if you lost, but after that, we just moved on. And we still couldn't figure out how the game would take it easy on you. And that came out of one of those panicky moments. Part of the reason that we film the playtest is I can't help but be a dungeon master or a game master. When I'm there, I just want everyone to have a good time, even if I should be quiet. And so I can't be in a room when people are playtesting because I just interfere. Oh, no.
You want to fix it for
me? I just fix it. No, you did that.
Here's how it works.
Here's how it works. And so I'm banned from doing that unless it's early playtesting where I'm like, look, we're just going to workshop this. And my friends played January of season 1. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And they got to the end and they lost, and they were so deflated. They're like, we have to play this again? And I went, yeah, but your boss has just raised your funding, so you get more event cards. And they're like, yay, right? And I was like, Matt, I figured it out. Like, I texted them. And it was just like, they're like so sad. And I'm like, these cards are good. People like these. Have more of them. So we've just worked with that.
Yeah.
So, but it was panic.
Just panic.
Finding that spine, like sort of like the through line through the whole season was the first breakthrough. And then we started to learn kind of how we could model the game on a movie or a TV show. And that helped us kind of think of different ways to structure it, where each game is kind of like an episode and the whole scenario or the whole campaign is like a season. And then that just unlocked all sorts of doors from storytelling. So it was a really fun experience for me working with the storytelling aspect of it. Brand new for me.
Steven, since the big success of Pandemic Legacy, are there now every week 10 new legacy ideas throwing in your mailbox?
We've been approached by several people who want to do legacy games. They're very difficult to produce well. In fact, season 2 was quite the challenge. They brought all these great ideas, and then we had to figure out how to make them work, like the scratching off and the stickers. People were worried about stickers initially, that they wouldn't stick on, and line up the way they wanted. So it was a big challenge, and we do have people approach us. But you're starting to see lots of other publishers are trying to figure it out.
It's a new genre now, yeah.
But it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think so. And in the process of, did you have ever some ideas of the legacy mechanics or other stuff where you think it's a good idea, and then you tried it and it doesn't work, it's impossible?
All the time.
80% of the job, right?
Yeah, welcome to game design.
Yeah.
The ability to get excited every morning and pretend that yesterday didn't happen.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Also a lot of denial about how much work is left to do, because they're just
it's always almost
marathons of
finished.
projects. So yeah, it's just almost done, and then you get that done, it's almost done.
Do you remember you said to me, in season 1, I said, I think we're like 80% done. And you said, I agree, it'll be the next 80% that's hard.
Or maybe some stuff who you would love to do it, which is impossible to produce, some living plants, or I don't know, some really impossible to do.
I will say this, they had a really cool idea for season 3, and we looked at it and it just wasn't possible. Right?
It just don't.
This wasn't feasible, but the idea was very cool, and if we don't start with the cool ideas, if we don't even give them a chance, we would never have something like Legacy, right? So you always have to follow it, see where it goes, see if you can end up shifting and adjusting a little bit, and maybe you end up with something that, like event cards, yay, like maybe you can make it work. But sometimes it doesn't always work, and once you realize that, you're better off just, okay.
I think we killed that idea before you told us we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
maybe you had already killed it. Yeah.
So you can be very proud because tomorrow is Monday, you earn the Spiel des Jahres Sonderpreis for Pandemic Legacy Season 2, and there haven't been a Sonderpreis since 8 years. So you impressed the jury so much with a game that they reinvented the Thunder Prize just for Pandemic Legacy. How great is that? And on this flow, can you tell one sentence or two or three about Pandemic Legacy Season 3?
We're working on it.
Yeah, we're working. Yeah.
It's in development.
Is there a release date? It's 2019.
We're really focusing,
Silence.
because of the award tomorrow, we really want to talk about Season 1 and Season 2. Season 3, we will not shut up about later this year into next year.
Later this
but
year,
we
so-
flew to Germany to talk about 2.
Yeah, of course.
We're
but
very excited about
yeah.
too.
You have to understand. I need to.
That's fine.
try.
I know people are excited.
Yep.
There's no Ewoks. Like we just. They didn't work. That's what he was talking about. It's the thing we couldn't make work.
How does that? Yeah. Of
So
course.
actually, how long does it take you to develop one of these? So it took you like 3-4 years or 10 years?
The first one took about 14 or 15 months, and then this one's a couple years.
Yeah, the last one took a little longer, partly because we started earlier and we said we have plenty of time, and then we didn't because we worked slower.
Well, you also had other projects concurrently too.
We have other projects.
Season 1, you were kind of able to focus a bit more, right?
No, we had other projects.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Matt went full time.
Yeah, he quit his job just to finish Season 1.
That's part of it. Yeah.
No, Matt and I live on opposite sides of the United States, so we meet via video. This is like our 12th time being in the same place ever. So depending on where we are, we will meet up to 3 or 4 times a week. If we're in a busy, like we need to make a lot of changes to get to the next play test. If we're earlier on and we're just thinking of ideas, it's usually twice a week. And then if we're watching all the video footage and taking notes, we'll be like, I don't take like half a month. All right, talk to you in half a month, and we won't meet at all. Or we'll be on vacation, or it'll be the holidays. So there's periods where we don't meet, but most of the time it's about twice a week for 14 or 15 months at an average pace.
Some more questions, please.
One question about, like, since Pandemic for itself already a strong IP nowadays, and you already got some storytelling, any plans for actually novels, like Pandemic story books you can buy?
Boy, that would be cool, wouldn't it? That would be really cool. I mean, there could be some potential there. I know Asmodee actually has a division called Asmodee Entertainment that they've established in order to pursue lots of things. So, for example, Plaid Hat recently did a Dead of Winter comic that features Sparky the dog. You remember the dog from Dead of Winter? So there are potentially some opportunities that we can investigate in doing that. I think those are cool. We'll see what happens.
How early in the development process of Pandemic Season 1 did you start with Pandemic Season 2? Was it at the end, or was it?
We finished all of Season 1 before 2. Occasionally you have ideas that don't fit and you put them on the shelf and maybe you revisit them later, but we weren't really thinking about 2 at all when we were doing 1.
And you immediately start up the book?
What's that?
How was it with number 3 and 2?
Similar thing, yeah.
Well,
finished 2 before. There's some thoughts.
It was a little thought. So we finished 1 in October. We started Season 2 6 months later in April, but it was still 6 months before 1 came out. So we're like, well, we'll start working on it. We don't know what we did right and did wrong, or if there will even be a Season 2, but we need to start now. Story-wise, in Season 2, we got halfway through and said, well, this is probably going to be a trilogy, so we should probably think of the very beginnings of 3, so we're not starting over there. So we did take some time in 2 to think of the story of 3, so that we knew like how the whole story went together. And so when we started 3, we had a little bit of like almost like you're writing an outline for a book in place. We changed a lot, but a lot of it stayed together. And every one you do, you realize you have rules that you didn't have before. Like, no, that's not how this works. Or wait, we said this here. So you start to have a world that you have to live in, and you can't do anything. So you need to be careful when you do it that you don't paint yourself in a corner.
Trilogy is the perfect idea. All good things are trilogies.
Yep.
Original Star Wars, The Godfather, Back to the Future.
Yep.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah, Indiana Jones only had 3
one more
movies.
question? No? Yeah, of course.
How many of the ideas from 1 or during the development process of Season 1 went to a third version?
don't think very many did, actually.
Actually,
In retrospect.
there's something in season 3 that I think was the big thing we abandoned in season 1, brought back. I don't know if you've thought of it that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There was something in season 1 that we wasted about a month trying to get right.
It was longer.
It was longer. It was like the summer of 2014. We're like, this is important.
See, the idea is so good, you don't want to give it up. You don't want to.
And then we were like, this is the, like we brought it to our first playtest and we had it through June, and this idea was introduced about June, and people were like, playtesting, and it was at a convention, like yes, yes, yeah, and they get to June, no. Like every group they get to, like, I don't want to play this anymore. Even if you had more, I'm done.
We kept trying to make it better, and we finally decided it was like cutting off a limb. You know, just like that part of the game is dead. We have to scrap it, move on, and it was really hard. But now when I get stuck in a game, I can think, oh wow, we recovered from that, so I can recover from.
And then now we're doing something. See, we'll talk about season 3 a little. In season 3, where I realized after we're done, I'm like, oh, this was the idea from 1. Done right.
Yeah,
but you had to ignore it for 3.5 years and then go, oh, this is how you do it.
Of course.
I'm making a lot of questions. Sorry.
No, you're welcome.
When I finished Pandemic Legacy 1, I said like, mind blowing. This is like the best board game experience I've had in my life.
Thank you.
This is unbeatable. And when I saw, like, actually I played it a bit late, but when I saw Pandemic Legacy Season 2, I said, yeah, bullshit, whatever. These guys are just trying to make more money out of whatever they made on the first one, whatever. And even my group, my play group, we said, yeah, whatever, we'll play something else and stuff. Let's play time stories. And I was a bit skeptical when I put Pandemic Legacy Season 2, but I can say, by all means, it's much, much better than Season 1, by far. And then I said, like, oh my god. So actually, do you guys, when you did it, so how did it feel for yourselves to have such a high bar in the first place? And actually I think many people agree that number 2 was better.
It's a good question.
How did it feel for you to say, like, oh my god, like, we can really screw up if we, like...
We're still working on 3, you're not making it easier.
Can you do it again? Yeah?
Or when you guys did it, did you say, like, you know, Rob, we did it. I mean, this is better.
Well, I think what helped was starting 6 months before it came out.
Oh, yeah.
It helped.
So we had no idea. I'm like, oh, I feel pretty good. Like when you make a game, you have a good feeling about some of them. Like I feel good. I think that there'll be a market for a season 2.
Right?
Yeah. Like we should. I don't think this is time wasted. And
No
we just started and we.
Well, our playtesters were very enthusiastic, and that helped a lot. It helped energize us, keep us going.
But. And there won't be any real spoilers here. It's nothing that you wouldn't know from reading the box or either game. But what I said before about turning things on their head, we sat down for season 2 and said, what if cubes were good? What if the world, instead of trying to have a world that's big and you try to save from getting small, what if your world that's small and you try to keep the light from going out entirely? Like the fire is burned down.
What if you already lost?
What if you already lost when you started? Like we just started to say, like, how do we turn it on its head? And then it's about rebuilding, and that just gave us an idea to, like, because we knew we couldn't just start with Pandemic again and go in a different direction. We had to start with something new, and so we tried to turn as many things into opposite at the start that we could. What if you weren't a great hero? Like, I am an immunologist. It's like, no, what if I'm the guy who grows the food, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, what, I have to do something, right? And how can you become that hobbit who leaves the Shire? Sort of thing. So we said, what if you're an every person? What if cubes are good? What if the world is almost gone? What if you've already lost? And we just found a whole new thing to get excited about there.
Since you talked about like maybe being a trilogy and the movie comparison also already came up, you kind of like draw like inspiration of those kind of trilogies? Like you have Star Wars and Indiana Jones was quite linear in a way. And then Back to the Future, that's sort of in between, or Planet of the Apes actually was sort of like back to it. Do you like watch those movies and think about it could be an idea to go, or is it just straight like board gaming? And
yes. So, has everyone here finished season 1? Has anyone not finished season 1? Okay. We won't spoil it. But there was a movie we said, like when we were working on the story, and we got halfway, and this movie came out around the time. We're like, our game is kind of like this movie, isn't it? We went, oh, and then we watched the movie and started pulling narrative, like, you know, it's like, oh, this would be good to have this, or this would be inspiration from that. And certainly with season 2, which is post-apocalyptic, are like, are we Road Warrior or are we this? And I recommended a book that Matt read, and then he recommends a book sometimes, and we read, and it was the same thing with season 3. We're like, here's the general area we're working in, and we took like the summer off again. We always leave like at least 3 to 6 months between them, and we had our homework to watch movies, so we could start with those notes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these play off genre fiction, so you don't want to make big gaffes. So it helps to be familiar with you know, the story area you're working in. So consumed a lot of media in those different genres.
The whole development of the game done by you two or the team around you? How big is it?
It's just us.
Well, it's design and then development,
Well, the
and
game,
now
They plug it into us.
they give it to them, and they haven't. So when we did season 1, it was just us. In season 2, Z-Man shifted ownership, and so we had access to their team, but very late. With season 3, we were in a position to sort of
We're going to take advantage of that a little more.
pitch the story at the beginning, make sure they're on board, get costs early to make sure that it was affordable, and then utilize their in-house team earlier in the process, so that we don't have to sort of do it all ourselves. Because one thing I've learned is having your work edited is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and anyone who thinks they don't need an editor has not met an editor yet.
In fact, having the work translated is really great as well.
Yes.
Because, when we get notes back from German team in localization, there's lots of questions about precision, and then we go back and make the English better. So that's also kind of fun.
Yeah, that's one thing we try to do to make your job easier. Hopefully we've done it, is every time there's a sticker, we can put 3 lines of text on it. We only write 2 lines in English. Knowing in German, it will take the entire 3rd line.
We try.
Yeah, we try. So sometimes we don't get it, but if we can't fit the rule or the power on 2 lines, we know in German it's going to be like this big. And so we try to rewrite it to make it work.
So Sebastian doesn't have to shrink the font and cram it all in.
This is very helpful, and I wish everybody would do this when they're doing their
I'll see what I can do.
Please do.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, with legacy games, we got a new problem as well in the board game culture. It's spoiler alert. We didn't have it before, and now you see we have to ask, you didn't have to play. It's a new thing in board games. So is it a problem to publish? Do you need for legacy games? It's a small amount of weeks between the release in the US and the release in Europe, at least at the same day, if it's possible to get rid of the spoilers?
That's a good question. So what we planned pretty well to do global release with season 2, and that's part of the reason why it ended up coming out when it did. We thought it was more important to have everyone get access about the same time. That's the goal. I mean, people who play these games because they like them don't want it spoiled. That's part of the experience, right? So that was our goal, is to kind of have it hit about the same time. And that's what we would do here with season 3 when that happens as well. We want to make sure everyone can access
at the same time, the same experience. And what does this mean for your work? If there's planned the same time release in Germany as the US, I mean,
it means I never give him enough time to
translate a huge amount of text.
It's a huge amount of text, and yes, you have very tight deadlines to meet here, because usually the developers take as long as they can.
Oh yes.
There's always
We're not done yet.
Too little time. The publisher already pushes them to get finished because they know when they will produce it and when they have to release it. And so this comes closer every time. And so we are at the last in line. So we can get pushed because this is fixed. So our time and dimension is all the time.
You're the last one. And
yes. So all the pressure comes right.
I'm sure the production people.
But first, you have.
This would be very helpful.
Yeah,
so you have
to reverse engineer it, right?
Yes.
At first, you have 8 weeks, no problem. Then, sorry, it's just 5 weeks.
6,
or there's one bad news. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 days,
and
2 hours.
And perhaps we have to give the files 1 week earlier.
Can you go on the ship to the containers and write there a translation?
Oh, I would do that. So if I could be on the assembly line and cards are coming up, like that's a 3, that's a 3. I needed more time. Just change it up.
But we have this in common, yeah. So, what did we do there?
Yeah.
We just change
Could we
one
change
word.
it,
Can we
please?
change
Please?
one word? No.
To Matt's point, English is such a loose language. You know, like, oh, do you grab a token? Do you take a token? Do you earn a token? Do you, like, it's fine. It all works. Yeah, whatever. Like,
That's the role player in you.
yeah,
right?
the role
DM,
player, the
just
DM,
it's
like, you
fine.
know what I mean. And I try to be precise, but you're writing these things 9 months apart, like 2 different cards or rules. And then the translators come in and they're like, why do you have 6 different verbs for the same thing?
There must be a meaning.
Right, there must be a meaning. And I'm like, in German there's a meaning. We're Americans, it's like, eh. Actually, that was more French, wasn't it?
Any more questions?
And to how many languages have you translated, and which one would you reckon is your biggest market after English?
That's a good question for Steve.
That is a very good question. Yeah, I would
French?
say it's a toss-up between German and French. I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't know that off the top of my head. But German and French were both very big markets for both legacy games.
And how many languages are this pandemic?
That did base game Pandemic. I know that there are nearly 30 languages. I think 27 languages for base game Pandemic. When it comes to legacy, there are at least 10. There may be 12. Is it up to 13?
I remember season 1
3 more.
being...
3 more got added later.
Yeah, like about a dozen. And season 2 was maybe 2 higher than that?
Yeah, because by then they knew. It was a risky proposition, right? It's an expensive game. Takes a long time to make. So once they saw the success of season 1, a few more languages were excited.
And after you played it, it's destroyed. So,
Yeah, right,
And
exactly.
Yeah.
Rob, do you get some strange mails since you saved Risk? Something like, can you save Monopoly? Or strange suggestions for...
Yes, a lot of people ask me, like, will you make a legacy version of blah? Most of the time it's a Hasbro game. I'm like, I don't work there anymore. And every game they're making now is like stepping in fake dog poo. Like, it's really, they're not looking for that, but it's true, go look. Yeah, no, what I get on Twitter is no matter what I tweet, almost one person will repeat my tweet and put legacy after to make a joke. Like, I'm going to Berlin. Berlin legacy? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to Berlin. Like, so I get that a lot, and I can't use that word. I'm like,
who is that guy?
Yeah. I'll say like, oh, in my career, I've left a body of work that like I just can't use the word anymore. I have to talk around it because as soon as I say it, everyone's like, ah, you said the word.
It's off limits.
There's worse things that could have happened to my career.
Very true.
But in a parallel universe, if you can pick up one license for free, just, yeah, let's do a legacy game of your favorite childhood movie, or is there something you would say, yeah, if it's
Well, I'm not going to,
free?
I would still try to make it if that's the case. During my time at Hasbro, worked on a ton of Star Wars games, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Like, I did it. I checked those boxes of doing like all these childhood or very passionate IPs, and I enjoyed it, and I would enjoy working on them again at some point. But yeah, there's a couple things that are still on my wish list that I'm talking to people about or working on. So.
And you, Matt?
Any IPs?
Some childhood memory IPs who would love to turn into a legacy game.
I really like working
On own and creating the universe in the world. I understand. Yeah, of course. Some more questions? Yeah, of course.
In both versions of the games, you have this screw-up box. If you screwed up, totally open this box.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions about that one. Do you know how often this is actually used? And do you have an aim to how many users should open it probably?
Oh, yeah. The importance of that box is really psychological. We learned that if people lost the game like 2 or 3 times, they got discouraged and they didn't necessarily want to keep playing.
At all, they abandoned the game.
Yeah, that's it. We're done. We've done so poorly. Why should we keep playing? So what we did with that was we set a floor or an anchor that says, well, 4 is really bad. we've only lost 3. If we lose again, at least we get to open the box. And so that kept momentum going for everyone. So it wasn't so much about like how many people do we want to open that. It was more about how can we tell people it's okay that they've just lost 3 games, and then if they lost a 4th one, they're actually, you know, it's Christmas. They get to open up a present. I'm not sure how many actually opened.
I think I learned about a group that lost 3 times in a row, and then they said, do we want to lose the next game just to know what's in there?
Let's play really, really bad.
Much better conversation.
Then should we keep playing?
Yeah, should we keep playing? Yeah.
Personally, I would like no one to open it. Right, that I'd love people to always be floating between this game is too easy and this game is too hard, but never crash and burn. When we're talking and projecting in any game, like right now with Season 3, you're like, well, what's the worst score someone could get, for example? And we do the case of everyone losing every month twice, and then we stop and go, at what point would you have quit, right? Like technically it's the lowest score, but would you really, like we lost 21 times in a row, let's keep at it, right? So I like to think that we never get to that absolute floor. Or if you do, if you go, we lost 4, we got the box, we lost another one, then people would go, this isn't for us. That's why I hope that no one ever necessarily opens it, because it means that they're probably going to not finish. And that's part of the fun.
Something inside the box.
Yeah.
Something.
But that box, it was, when I saw it, it was not clear for me if it was going to be something really good or something really bad.
Oh.
Actually, I was almost sure that I would open it and I would have a sticker that said, congratulations, you suck.
Yeah.
There's a 20% discount, so that you can buy
People in
another.
this room don't know that that's not true.
Buy another more easy game. So good.
Yeah, we're not that mean. Like I said, I'm a DM. Maybe in 1983, I'd be like, total party kill, roll up new characters, but that's just not good storytelling. Like, once upon a time, everyone died. Okay, right? So we want you to have the ups and downs, and right when you think, like, we got this game, we want to be like, do you? And then if you're like, we don't know how to win, we want to be like, here's a little bit of help so that you stay in the middle. We're not quite that mean. Sometimes we are.
Gibt es noch Fragen? Na klar.
Do you have like a decision tree on what possible ways a legacy game can go if you develop? Or do you just see it if it happens during a playtest? Or how do you approach it?
There's a lot of experimentation. Generally, we try different things and see what works. Sometimes they're more linear, sometimes they're not. And yeah, there's a lot of spreadsheets involved.
Your wife's saying talk louder.
Oh, okay. Try to project.
One thing that we do is when we get about halfway through or 2/3 through and we think we have it all out, we will go back and check the map. What if you just did this every time, or what if you did this every time, to make sure it can't.
You're testing the extremes.
You're testing the extremes and make sure that, like we say, like, well, what if someone just did this every time? And we realize, well, you can, but it's not fun and you wouldn't win. So if you want to, go ahead.
You have special groups who tell play the most weird way you can, and you play.
Oh, they'll do it on their own.
Yeah, you don't have to convince them; they will do it themselves. Right? We're gamers. We like to break things.
One
we
time
like to
play
find
it
a rule.
like a normal family, please. No, I can't.
What like about the future for legacy games and how far it could go? Like with involved board games, it will be getting easier for some legacy experts probably to fulfill them. But where do you see like the line where it becomes actually like how far can a legacy game go with maybe technical devices before it becomes a like more computer game? And where do you think it will go for the future?
That's an interesting question.
I think about this often, so
Do you?
let me know.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of things that have sort of come out that don't say legacy. Like you look at Time Stories, which I don't know if they played Risk Legacy or we were just thinking about the same thing because they came out fairly close. But then I look at Gloomhaven, which said legacy-like stuff, Seventh Continent, Ignacy Tevicek's new game, Detective. You look at the escape room games. What I think people are discovering is you can add more narrative, but usually at the cost of replayability.
Exactly.
They're just doing it in different ways. They're saying, we're going to give you a shorter experience that you can't redo, but we think it'll give you a better story. And then there are games over here where the story might be lower in some cases, but you can just, keep playing it again and again and get different experience with it. So I think it's already branched, but the first thing people did was drop the name and just said, oh, we don't have to make it infinitely replayable? Great. Now what can I do? And that's what I think you're already have been seeing it over the past 5 years.
So I guess with Rob's response, that covers more consumable games, right? Games that you have a fixed experience in. The interesting thing about what an app can do is it allows you to hide some of your rules overhead, right? So when we're playing and we look at the deck and we really want to optimize and make sure the epidemic cards and the odds, we can look at that. But if it's in an app, we would say it's under the hood. We can't see it. It's not easily accessible to us. So what's intriguing to me about any possibility of using an app for something like this is you can hide things from the players so they're not distracted by the percentages or the odds.
Yeah.
You can immerse them a bit more and focus on the gameplay.
But you can have the story come out, but that comes at a cost. Because
does.
if the app is handling it, then it's magic, and it's a black box.
Yes.
And you can't consider it, and then it's less of a game. So.
And you may feel cheated.
Yeah,
Yes,
You don't know what it's doing.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, there's a trade-off there, really. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Any more questions in the room? No.
You're working on restoration games now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it after, but I do have a second publisher that I am a partner in, that Restoration Games, which takes old games out of print and restores them and puts them back. So we don't just do reprints, and in fact, we haven't done a straight reprint. We always tweak it or change it, which has given me a lot more respect for your job and your job and everything else when I'm shouting at design, which is me most of the time, like, pencils down, we need to have production and translation do their job. And my wife is our production person, so she's the last one who sends the files out. So she will let me know when I'm taking too long, like 4 months before she needs to be working on it. So yeah, I've gotten a lot of
You have a newfound appreciation for the whole process.
for the whole process. Like, I knew it and I saw it at Hasbro, but to actually be in the meetings and talking about all of the different pieces has been, even after 20 years, I'm like, oh, this is how it works. This is how a talk comes together at a convention. So a lot more appreciation for that.
So you do like 50-50 between that and...
Yeah, it's been about 50-50. Actually, Restoration kind of took off and faster than I planned, so I was finishing some of my individual designs, and I'm going to be spending more time with Restoration right now because I have the most experience with the company, sort of getting everyone up to speed, but that's all just behind the scenes for me.
Looking forward to Fireball Island Legacy.
Nope, see, you did it. You put the word legacy at the end.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
You're the guy.
You found him. Great. So, yeah, that's okay. 2 more questions. One in the back.
Max, do you have another IP of you would like to do next?
Oh, that's a good question. Other IPs for Legacy. I think at this point all I can say is yes. And,
Now I have something to ask you at dinner.
Good one.
So I don't want to spoil at all, but we played Pandemic Legacy Season 2, and in December there's a certain twist. And we were like, whoa. And it really took us like, I don't know, 2 months, I think, to really play the December the second time. So was it, in your point of view, thing where you said, this certain feature is like a borderline thing, where you're discussing that heavily, or was it more like, okay, let's do it? You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. If you
like
had to play it
emotional reaction you had to the thing?
I think I know what you're talking about, and that you played it a second time. I understand like what probably happened. No, we talk about, is this too much? Is this not enough? And then we wait to see what the playtesters do on video. And then we ask them after, or we see their reactions after. The nature of a legacy game is we always want to make it feel just a little bit more real than it should for being a board game. So that you just feel like you're somehow invested in a way that it's not like, well, like we can all get mad when we lose a game. But this is more like you feel some sense of connection that you didn't because it went. So we think about it. It's never like, that'll be fine. And then we test it, and sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. So, did you win the second time?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point though. Even in season 1, we had a group that was playing, and you know, there's some more radical actions you can take that, you know, that become available. And some people in the group felt like it was more a moral cause, and they said, we can't possibly do this. And someone else said, are you kidding? We need to do that right now. We want to win. And so it really depends on the way players approach the game.
Yeah.
Do they feel like they're actually part of the world and going to blow something up or, you know, release something bad? Or are they actually just playing it to win? And
Right,
I think
and
you get a nice mix of people playing. It gives you, you know,
It leads to really interesting discussions that you might not have with a different board game, which I think is really fun. You know, you get all these. You got passion about it because you've been with this character or with this game for so long. I watched some of my friends like storm out of the room at certain points.
just agonize over it, right?
Yep.
I heard that some reviewers said that they would never like to be involved in the test of one of your games or legacy games because that would stop their knowledge about it. How easy is it to find a game tester, and how can I apply?
It is. It's in the middle, right? You want to find people that have something you're looking for like 2 people who are new. You know, like we just had a group test season 3 who didn't play season 2 because we wanted to see like what happened if you're like, we'll skip 2, and it worked. Sometimes we just send an email out or we put something on Twitter or Facebook if we're looking for a certain group at Gen Con or different things. We rarely just throw a flare up to everyone because it's overwhelming and it's hard to necessarily know. The problems I've had with many legacy games, I think everyone is you get a very enthusiastic group and they make it like a third of the way through and they're like, sorry, someone had a work trip.
Real life happens.
Real life happens, and then there's always one that you took a day and a half to build the prototype and you get no real data off it because they didn't finish. So that's the thing we try to avoid, which is harder when you don't know people.
Yeah.
Do you actually pay them? Or you do it for free?
We give them credit and try to send them a game, and I'm always, always, always deeply grateful for people. I think a lot of people like to go backstage, right?
They like the behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm a big food person. If some restaurant said, can you come in and spend a night like trying different foods?
You
And
would like to put it up on the menu?
you would like to put it on the menu, what would you try? I'd be like, yes, right? And I'd be eating like bad food. Like, I can make this better. And so I understand it, so I'm always thankful.
Okay.
How is it for you as a reviewer? There are more legacy games coming, more also those campaign games. How is the pressure for you?
Yeah,
What an interesting question.
it's different, of course. The main problem is you can't just play through the game and then starting the review. We learned through a painful lesson that we first have to shoot the board clean with no stickers and no some damage. And in the first legacy we ripped off cards and but now in the season 2 we take the cards back and in the initial order so we can show it in the review as it was in the beginning and made pictures of the board in clean look so we can spoiler-free review. And but the other interesting point, we didn't done it from now, but I would like to. You can do 2 videos, one review video, and after now you can do a video and talk about season 1. I think, and nobody will watch it who. Spoiler alert! Okay, don't watch it. But now I think you can talk and what was the feelings and the emotions through this game. So it's creating also a new kind of reviewing games. So yeah.
Sorry.
Can I make a last question?
Of course, the last question.
Rob, did you actually ever think of patenting actually this legacy thing? Because it's very nice of you to not have done.
No, I was working at Hasbro, and I knew I'd probably be leaving because they were moving, and my boss, the guy I said recognized it, tried to get Hasbro's lawyers to patent it twice, and both times lawyers are like, there's nothing new or innovative here, and I'm like, so once the game came out, no one can patent it because it's out. I briefly debated making like a legacy trademark that was sort of like, I worked on it, and I'm just like, I'm just looking for work. There's no need to start, you know, carving off portions of my sandbox, and it's worked out fine. So.
Thank you very much for showing up at our con. I hope you have time to walk around here.
Yes.
You have a look. Yeah, great. Thank you for showing up, and I hope you will come next year again. And have fun tomorrow picking up the Sonderpreis, special prize from Spiel des Jahres.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.